I think as you take a look at the size of the number of kids in your classes and your class size, I think it's kind of evident that if we were able to pass funding that actually went to reducing class size, then I think you would have the answer because, you know, what do you have, 32, 34 in a class?
Yeah.
Right. So wouldn't it be nice to have all classes capped at 25? Okay, now you take those extra 10 kids, okay, and for every group of 3, that's a teacher. So for every 3 classes that you reduce, now you need to hire a new teacher. So we're not talking about something that's a cheap solution. Reducing class size is expensive. You know, we're fortunate because we live in a place where parents are able to maybe spend extra on materials for you guys, where in other districts and other areas of the state they can't. And that's part of the crux of the issue of funding is the disparity between what we generate here in Boulder Valley versus what they do in the San Luis Valley School District. Based on what a lot of people say, not a lot. And I say that because it's about fixing kind of a broken system for the haves and the have-nots. We are very fortunate that we're a highly educated district, and parents for the most part, you know, not all of them, but many of them in the middle class or above. And so when we need things here at Fairview, generally parents step up and we're able to, more often than not, get funding. We pass bond issues where, again, some of the poor districts don't and can't. They just can't afford it. So we wouldn't have come out as good. Really, I don't know that it would have even just been negligible for us versus some of the others, but, you know, like for those of us in education that really care, we want greater good, and that's why I voted for it. There were things about it, and I will tell you that I think there were problems with it from the beginning, and wherever you were politically, left or right, that I think people, in part felt like to do a constitutional amendment to fund education is a tricky proposition, because why do we need an amendment to force people to fund education? It seems like, you know, that kind of that's a no-brainer, and yet here we are battling. It becomes a political football,
Yeah.
and so I would have liked to have seen it pass because I'm a teacher and I'm all about greater good and I'm all about making sure that education is funded. I hope that given maybe the loss of Amendment 66, now we go back to the drawing board and say, okay, so what were the good parts about that and what do people complain about? So what can we do to actually come forth with an idea maybe, you know, next year that would have greater, more broad support, that actually would pass and, you know, end up doing the same thing. Grants, bonds, and constitutional amendments are all different from each other. Grants are something that we write to different agencies that provide funding. For example, I just wrote a grant through the Fairview Parent Organization for seating in the library. We want to put up a counter along the back wall, so with bar stools so you can sit out and look out over the lake. That was a grant. We talked about Amendment 66. That was an amendment to the Constitution. And then the other thing that you see more often than not are bonds. And that's passed by the municipality, so the whole state doesn't vote on it, just the residents of your voting area, so for us it'd be Boulder County, vote whether or not they want to pay more money toward education. And when you have a valid purpose and you can ensure that it goes to where it's supposed to go, I think then people are willing to spend the money because, again, people in Boulder understand the importance of a good education, and, you know, you need look no further than Fairview High School for, you know, how high the bar can be set. You know what? I know of a few. On the literacy side of things, I know especially they've done a great job funding like reading book clubs, and so they bought books and materials for the kids. I know that right now there's a grant being written for additional nooks for the English as a second language group. They helped fund painting of our library. And so I think that's a big deal because our library is heavily used, and you know, you kind of want it to be the crown jewel of the school. So when people come in, they go, "Wow, what an amazing library!" So I know they fund a lot of our endeavors, and thank goodness they do, because they help make up for the shortcoming and the shortfall from, you know, what we get for our meager budget.